When that tall, dull white man waved to me from the other side of the window, my heart skipped a beat. My mind traveled back to a few minutes ago when it all started. I was driving calmly down that deserted road, trying to get home soon after a long day at work. My eyes started to feel heavy and I decided to slow down. It was then that I saw him, standing in the middle of the road, a gigantic being, almost 3 meters tall, with skin as white as marble. I was paralyzed for a few seconds until I crashed the car into a tree. As soon as I came to, I opened the door and started running desperately towards my house. I didn't look back. I just ran as fast as I could. My home never seemed so far away. I arrived panting and locked all the doors and windows. But now, here he was, standing outside, waving at me with those long, thin arms. My heart felt like it was going to jump out of my mouth at any moment. That imposing and strange creature kept waving at me, as if inviting me out. I felt a chill down my spine and decided to move away from the window. I walked slowly through the house, trying to find something that could defend me if that being tried to enter. I took a knife from the kitchen and returned to the living room, standing next to the window, observing that enigmatic figure. She seemed to study me too, her large, dull eyes fixed in my direction. After what felt like hours, he finally turned and began to walk away, his long, slow steps leaving deep marks on the ground. I waited a few minutes trying to catch my breath, before daring to look out the window again. He was gone, as if he had dissolved into the darkness of the night. I let out a long sigh of relief, but something inside me said it wasn't over. Something told me that creature would return, and when I came back I would have to be prepared. I stayed up all night, jumping at the slightest noise. I couldn't stop thinking about that imposing and unsettling figure. Who or what could that creature be? Where did she come from? What did you want with me? As soon as the sun rose, I decided to leave the house to investigate. Maybe he would find some clue or sign of that entity. I walked along the road, observing my surroundings, but there was nothing unusual. Everything seemed calm and peaceful, as if nothing had happened. I arrived at the scene of the accident and examined the wreckage of my car. It was irreparable. I continued walking, following the road I had previously taken. It didn't take long until he saw something in the middle of the path. My heart raced again when I recognized the tall, white figure standing in the middle of the road. She seemed to watch me, her big, empty eyes fixed on me. I felt a shiver run down my spine. I immediately turned around and started running back to the house, praying that the creature wouldn't follow me. Did I manage to escape, or would that being pursue me until the end? My feet felt like they had wings as I ran back home. I didn't look back, afraid to see that creature chasing me. I arrived home panting and closed the door tightly, then locked it. I stood still for a few minutes trying to catch my breath. My heart was beating so hard it felt like it was going to jump out of my chest at any moment. Then a noise outside the house caught my attention. I walked slowly to the window and cautiously exhaled. There he was again, standing in front of the house, looking directly at me. His face was an impassive mask, expressionless. I felt a chill run through my body. I then decided to look for something that could defend me, in case that creature decided to invade the house. I searched the entire house, but found nothing but an old loaded shotgun that belonged to my father. I took the gun and went back to the window, waiting. There he was, standing on the sidewalk, staring at the house with those empty eyes. My heart was beating so hard that it felt like it was going to come out of my mouth at any moment. I clutched the old shotgun tightly in my hands, praying I wouldn't have to use it. I stayed there, watching that creature for long minutes, waiting for it to finally go away. But she didn't move. He continued to stare at me, as if he were searching for something inside me. Then, to my amazement, she began to approach. His steps were slow and heavy, leaving deep marks on the floor. With every step I took, my panic increased. Was that thing going to invade my house? What did she want? When she got very close to the door, I raised the shotgun, aiming directly at her. My fingers were shaking so much I could barely hold the gun. But I was determined to defend myself no matter what. As soon as he approached the door, I aimed the shotgun in his direction. My body shook with fear, but I was determined to defend myself. That creature wasn't going to come into my house. She stopped a few meters from the entrance, staring at me with her empty eyes. Then, to my astonishment, she slowly raised one of her huge hands and began to knock on the door, as if asking for passage. I was paralyzed, not knowing what to do. Should I shoot? Or should he just stay there, praying she would go away? My mind seemed to short-circuit, unable to make any decisions. After a few minutes that seemed like an eternity, the creature gave up beating and slowly turned around, walking away towards the road. I watched her go, feeling my heart slowly return to normal. Was it over? Or would that creature return? During the night, I kept an eye out for any strange noise or movement outside. I couldn't close my eyes, afraid that that creature would appear again. Finally, when the sun rose, I allowed myself to rest a little. In the morning, I decided to go out and inspect the surroundings. I needed to understand what was happening and find out more about that being. I walked to the scene of the accident, but found no clues. Everything seemed normal and peaceful. I continued my way along the road, alert for any sign of that white figure. Arriving at a further point, I saw an old abandoned house. I felt a shiver run down my spine, but curiosity took over. I approached slowly with the shotgun firmly in hand. The house looked untouched, as if it had been left behind a long time ago. Cautiously, I pushed the door and entered the place. Would I find any clues about that creature in that abandoned house? Upon entering the abandoned house, I felt a cold and oppressive air. Everything seemed untouched, as if time had stopped there. I walked slowly through the rooms, the shotgun firmly in my hands, ready to defend myself if necessary. I reached the main room and something caught my attention. On an old wooden table, there was a book with an aged black cover. I approached and leafed through it carefully. It appeared to be a diary, with yellowed pages written in an old, elaborate handwriting. The first notes talked about the construction of the house and its owner's plans. But as the pages progressed, the tone of the text became increasingly dark and disturbing. Mentions of dark rituals, creatures from beyond the grave, and macabre experiments made my stomach turn. Then, on one of the last pages, I found a detailed description of that whitish figure that tormented me. The owner of the house called her the Watcher and said she was a supernatural entity, attracted to tormented souls. My heart sank when I read that. Had that creature been summoned by some demonic ritual performed in that house? What if she was hunting me for some reason? After reading those disturbing diary passages, I became even more terrified. So was that whitish creature a supernatural entity, attracted to tormented souls? What if she had been summoned by the dark rituals performed in that house? My fear only increased with each page I turned. The owner of the house seemed to have become obsessed with this Watcher, describing her in frightening detail. He said she was an imposing, almost hypnotic presence that drew him more and more to the dark side. Distressed, I closed the diary and started looking for more clues or information that could help me understand what was happening. I searched every corner of that house, but I found nothing but dusty furniture and abandoned objects. Just as I was about to give up and leave, I heard a noise coming from the upper floor. My heart froze. Was that creature there? Slowly, I began to climb the stairs, the shotgun firmly in my hands. What would I find upstairs? Did you like this 9th block? Do you want me to continue with the ending? When I reached the upper floor, I saw a closed door at the end of the corridor. My heart skipped a beat, and I knew that whitish creature would probably be on the other side. Taking a breath, I approached slowly and carefully pushed the door open. To my surprise, the room was empty. However, something caught my attention. In the center of the room was a huge, dusty mirror, its surface reflecting the light coming in through the windows. Fascinated, I approached the mirror, observing my reflection. It was then that something changed. The image in the mirror began to distort, until, in its place, the imposing and disturbing figure of that whitish creature appeared. My blood ran cold and I backed away in panic, raising the shotgun, ready to fire. But the creature didn't move. She simply stared at me through the mirror, her features enigmatic and expressionless. Then, to my horror, she slowly raised one of her long, slender hands and placed it on the glass of the mirror. My reflection began to fade, being replaced by his image. I never saw my own face again. And so we come to the end of this dark story. Or is we really coming? Because now, while you watch this video, be aware of you. These stories are not always on the screen. Sometimes they find a way of us follow to enter our minds. So if you hear a strange sound, if you notice an unexpected shadow or feel that invisible presence by your side, remember, it may just be your imagination, or maybe you have awakened something you shouldn't. If you have the courage, subscribe to the Portal of Horror to explore more dark mysteries. See you next time. Until there, and be careful what may be watching you.